Hey everyone, my name is John Stix from Nucleus.com, a company that is a unified communication space for entrepreneurs, and you're listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the S.M.E Stories podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
Hey everybody, thanks for on the show. We got a great episode today with John Stix. Now, John Stix is the co-founder and CEO of Fibernetics beyond Telecom. Now, they're going to be talking on this show about Nucleus, their newest product. Now, a little bit about Nucleus, actually. Nucleus is a free business phone system app designed by entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and startups to change the way they communicate with their customers, teams, and vendors. So Nucleus represents a lifelong collaboration between two friends, John Stix and Jody Schnarr, who have built multiple technology companies alongside a leadership management team. John and Jody believe in the power of creating transformational business cultures to create transformational businesses. Fibernetics has an impact mission that matters. A year-over-year employee surveys reveal that over 50% of Fibernetics employees hope to stay with the company for life. John and his team have over 20 years of experience together and understand what customers require to succeed in the ever-changing business communications landscape. So guys, we're going to be in the telecom industry today, and I think you're going to enjoy this episode, so sit back and absorb. So let me just jump into the industry here, because you're talking about the telecommunications industry. So what is your current, opinion of the industry, and where do you think it's going right now?
To say that I'm frustrated with the current state would be an understatement. I really want to see, I think it's crucial, if we're going to see the brilliance of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, get into this sector and deliver value to Canadians that, quite frankly, we should already have. We're going to need different policy. We're going to need to see this really open up more. It's not opened up. We have some of the highest communication costs out of any G7 nation in the world. I think it is actually the highest, depending on the sector, but for sure mobile. Our internet costs are quite high, but we simply don't have the ability to get into those markets. And in some cases, we're regulated so heavy to resell at a certain price that it doesn't give us a lot of flexibility. So what I'm really hoping is that we see some progressive policy that comes out that really opens up the market so that companies, young entrepreneurs want to get into telecommunications, can really be free to deliver the value to Canadians. And then Canadians, will be able to look forward to receiving cost savings, new value, new services from Canadian companies that are in a position to be able to create them.
Well, I guess that's a weird thing, right? Because if you take a look at the big incumbents right now, we can think about the Rogers, the Bells, the Teluses, and all that sort of stuff. And you're talking about trying to open up the marketplace. I guess I've always been under the opinion that, if you're confident in your product or service, then you should be open to letting almost anyone in so you could really see how good you really are, right? Because the minute you just have only a couple of them there, you really have nowhere to go, right? And I remember one time, I think I was with Rogers at the time, and I was switching to a third-party reseller for my mobile internet and stuff like that. I was going through Tech Savvy and stuff like that. So when I called Rogers, I said, "Yeah, I'm here to cancel." They're like, "You're leaving us?" I'm like, "I'm not really leaving you. It's just that I'm going to go to another company that's going to still pay you. So you're still indirectly getting my money. So it's not like I'm leaving you."
Right.
Right.
That's right.
So I think that's what you're saying is a challenge, right? Because the only big players are like the Rogers and the Bells, who have hundreds of millions of dollars of capital and cash sitting around.
Yeah.
That as a reseller, they say, "Oh yeah, you can undercharge them a little bit," but they set a price point that you that's the most you can try to sell it for.
And this is the problem. And gaining entrance into the actual mobile infrastructure and to be able to resell onto their infrastructure, it's just not set up for us to be able to do that yet. And there's great competitive Canadian companies that would love to jump on the opportunity and be able to deliver different types of value sets to Canadians. And quite frankly, I don't think Canadians are aware in a lot of cases that we can't do that. Like, we're just not allowed to. And until that changes, until real competition is allowed to occur. And quite frankly, in my opinion, Ken, we live in a country that's supposed to have that going on.
Yeah.
Canadians are going to continue to pay these high prices.
So then, in this particular industry here, so what are the other details that people don't know? So right now, I think to a lot of missions, they may not even know that, even as a reseller. So if you're still piggybacking off of the big players, you're only kind of limited to how much you can really charge. So yes, you might be saving a little bit of money compared to going with one of the bigger ones, but that market, you're still at the overall, you're still paying more. Was there anything else that people don't know about the telecom industry that would surprise them?
Well, I think that, I'll go back to the fact that I think that people, like, we're seeing lots of innovation, but we're generally seeing the innovations, I think, in terms of companies that are US based,
Yep.
international based. We're seeing great evolution and innovation in social, over the years with social media and, different applications, to allow people to communicate. But where's the innovation in terms of mobile calling, mobile service, mobile value pricing? Where's the innovation in terms of rural Canada having access to alternative networks? Where's the innovation in terms of companies like us that are, like you mentioned, tech savvy, us, Fibernetics, Nucleus with this application, and others out there having the ability to be able to deliver higher speeds packaged with voice products that can deliver different types of value to Canadians. But what might be the biggest surprise is, in a lot of ways, we feel very handcuffed as a legitimate competitor in the marketplace. I mean, we are a national CLEC, which is pretty much the highest designation that a phone company can attain in Canada. We are the competitive local exchange carrier, but there's markets that just not have been opened up. It's like a big padlock on the door, and we can't get through it until there's policy that's changed. And until that policy changes, and again, I would encourage everyone that's listening to this, if you feel compelled to this message, investigate it, look at it, visit the CRTC website. But we as competitors want to deliver more value, but that door's locked in a lot of cases, and we can't.
So it's almost like a members only club, and you're still waiting on the outside. You still can't get in.
Yeah, some would say that monopolistic duopoly kind of scenario. I'm suggesting that there's a lot of already well-established competitors that could provide tremendous value with new products and services that we just cannot get into the market.
That's too bad.
And some of those restrictions are regulatory, and some of those restrictions are financial.
Right. Wow.
Like being able to play in the sandbox of hundreds of $1 million companies when you don't generate that kind of revenue can be difficult.
No, I totally understand. Wow. Unbelievable. So for this last question we have here on the industry part is like, what has been your biggest failure, but also your biggest success so far?
Ooh, wow. Great questions. I would say our biggest success is constantly reinventing and being open to reinvent who we are as a company. Push through what seems to be sometimes obstacles that are impossible, but doing it together. And I think our biggest failure, in my opinion, would be when we forget that. I think when we become a bit siloed in terms of operating not as a team, or maybe potentially thinking we can do it all, whatever the motivating factors are, when we forget the power of us as a team, that can be our biggest failure.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally can relate to that. So, all right, we're going to hit from the tips from the pro segment here. So these are some more specific questions within the industry. So listener questions, had a lot of these ones here. Told my listeners this, and they had some questions, and I'm just going to read them out to you there.
Sure.
So in the telecom space, if someone was to try to get into it, is there any small niche that you think would be something that they should try to look into?
Oh, amazing question. And, such entrepreneurial spirit behind whoever asked that. And that goes back to the original story. When the market opened up, we were trying to find that little tiny sliver. Hey, there's always possibilities. And the one thing about doing it from a place of where you don't have a high cost base to support a company, part of what makes you super special in that moment in time is your ability to adapt, be agile, and try. And so, would I like to see the climate be better? Yes. Do I want to see more opportunity to be there and apparent for entrepreneurs? Yes. But it's still a huge industry, and I think that if young entrepreneurs could focus on the rural internet delivery and figuring it out, where in rural Canada can we possibly deliver something in a way that hasn't been done, because those markets you're not going to find near the competition. I think you're going to find that people are really hungry for alternative price points and services. And so, what I would suggest in that case is focus your attention on the smaller towns and the smaller regions of Canada and see what they can't get, what is not available to them, and potentially see that as an opportunity to identify a service that you can deliver.
Yeah, because I think a lot of, like, to piggyback off that point there, because a lot of people think, I got to hit the major markets, the major cities, the Torontos, the Waterloos, where it's like you start small, which is what your story was in the beginning. You started small. You didn't try to go after the big market first. It's like, okay, let's find what's like a reasonable sized city and what can we do? And I think that's a really good idea, actually. Good niche. So, all right, next question here. If I'm looking for developers, where should I find them?
Another great question. And, normally I would pose this for my business partner, Jody. That's certainly in the realm of his expertise. But what I would suggest is, wow, the world has changed. And what I can see is, Jody, really is the one that's moving on that side of the business. And he is seeing, and we are seeing tremendous talent globally. And of course, with the emergence of certain applications that are now tackling the translation problems that we've had, since the beginning of time, pretty much, in terms of language barriers or being a barrier, a lot of those barriers are starting to come down, right? And we see that through a lot of the AI applications. And so this, I believe, is opening up a tremendous opportunity to be able to partner, employ, and, link with really talented developers globally that can potentially need the opportunity and can also, from a very good cost savings potential for your company and endeavor, deliver what you require from a development perspective.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to hire outside of your local space, because I guess that's what people are worried about. I'm sure there's sites like Fiverr and Freelancer that you could try it out just to see a little bit lower cost. But I think what you brought up a good point though is that the translation and the barriers are starting to go down. And I'll make this story really quick. My family and we went to Hong Kong and Japan last year, and Japan, I love it. I'm going back there in August again. I remember one of the biggest tools that we had was Google Translate, right? Was such an awesome tool, because then, even for those places that they couldn't speak English very well, if I type it in English and it auto translated in Japanese, I would just show them the actual translation. Because I think there was one question, we were at a hotel and they said, "Hey, did you want a Japanese breakfast or a American style breakfast?" Now, this is maybe like, I don't know, a few days in, and all I've been eating is Japanese food. John, don't get me wrong, I love Japanese food, but I also like North American food,
I hear you.
especially for breakfast. So, the family all ordered Japanese, and I was trying to explain to the host or whatever, to say, is it possible to get the American's breakfast? And of course, when I tried to verbally say that, he couldn't understand a word. He was smiling, but he couldn't understand. And then I finally translated it for him, and I was like, I showed it to him, and he looked at me deep in my eyes, he smiled and said, "No. You had to get the Japanese breakfast." But anyways, I just wanted to throw that in there. So
that's very good. It's a great example. Yeah,
exactly. And so I think the more we do it, and I think it's sometimes harder for some people, because I think, like you, yourself, and myself, we like talking to people. Right. So I think sometimes the fear of going outside of, your country is, will they really understand? There's certain words that I'm not supposed to say, or do they really understand? Because some people, when they say yes, that doesn't mean they agree. They just said, "Yes, I hear you." they still could be totally missing whatever ask you're giving them.
Yeah,
so I think that's what people are sometimes worried about. But okay, next question here. So when it comes to any type of app development, perpetual, monthly, free?
Well, first off, I think it depends on the actual application itself and the service that's being delivered, and the audience that you're going after. But I'm just a real, I love reducing barriers, and I think the condition right now, in terms of one of the human conditions is we've been overloaded with too many options. I mean, we're really in the era, if you want to call it, of abundance. Like we just have so much at our fingertips available to us, so much choice. I almost feel like it's overload at times. So I just believe that what we're really looking for is, one, I'm authentically connected to whatever that service is and the messaging around it. I believe in what's being offered to me. And it's simple. It needs to tackle obstacles. And so when you're looking to deliver the service, you want to remove friction points. You want to remove barriers. You want to make it easy for them to try or use. And so if you have the ability to make a portion of that service product free or all of it, I'm a big proponent that removes a huge barrier and allows potential customers to try it. Potentially, if you let them use it long enough, if you can from a cost perspective, you're now even changing their behaviors and expectations in terms of that service.
Yeah, because they go to yours immediately first, before anything else.
Yeah, you're building goodwill. You're reaching new people, different types of relationships. And I've never found anything that has a lower cost of acquisition than putting your service out for free.
Absolutely. I remember too, like thinking about, I remember an old business idea I had at the time. This is probably maybe what, 2002, 3, 4 maybe. And I remember, this is before smartphones. So I'm kind of dating myself to some of my listeners there. So before smartphones were really a thing, everyone had like cell phones, but they didn't have any, you couldn't do videos. They had that game called Snakes that everyone seemed to play with.
That's
right. And it was strictly talking, maybe, I don't know if texting had been, maybe texting had started by that point, but I remember I had this brilliant idea that I wanted to steal off of someone. I was at the gym and I saw this at the juice bar, and then, what this company's called? This, I don't even know if this is, it's probably not around anymore. What it's called? Pronto Reminder Services. So what they offered was literally reminder services. So I kind of noodled with that. I said, that would be interesting. That if I charge them, let's say $25 a month, or just whatever that price point was,
right,
where I will have me, or if I hire someone, they will be your personal reminder person. They'll either call you, back then fax, right, or anything like that, just so for any specific appointment that you might have, or anything that you put on your list, or to-do list or whatever. Go get groceries, go buy flowers, pick up the movie tickets, all that sort of stuff. I thought, man, that's not a bad idea. I think that would have been great. And then I think not too much later, the BlackBerry came out, and then and to the point that you're like, I'm kind of glad I didn't invest a lot of money in this, because I would have totally just short-term that business. It would have crashed the minute smartphones really became a thing, right? Because you have to think of that longevity, right? Because I think people forget in the beginning, they're just like, immediate need now. But then I think it's good to have that longer picture to think, okay, what about next year? What about the year after that? What's the new big thing that we're seeing, right? And can we navigate in that direction? Do we have enough infrastructure to support that? Or should we someone else is kind of doing it, how about we just maybe buy them out, and maybe we'll do our own version of that? And so it's little things like that. So
super good advice. And I think by also going back to the free component and listening to you also create, really strong white picket fences around your service, because it's not like you can make it any more free.
Yeah. It's like, how about I give you money, right?
Right. That's the only other scenario. Yeah.
Aside from that. So, all right, last question here. So you talked about silos. Usually I would ask, how do you deal with difficult clients? But then how would you deal with actual silos now within your company? So you get to that point. And I think a lot of bigger companies have that issue right now, because like you said, there's that growth phase where, everyone's happy, everyone's cheerleading each other. Yeah, we're growing, we're growing. But then slowly teams start to develop within your company. And then this team's not talking to that team. And then you're kind of like you said, disconnected from everybody. So how would you recommend someone who's running a company now, and unfortunately there are the silos that everyone hears about? What's your best recommendation to try to deal with that?
Well, I firmly believe, great question. I firmly believe that silos are generally created, not always, but generally created because in some form or fashion, they do not feel safe. Meaning, I'm protecting my place. I'm not sharing because, for some reason there's generally fear involved. There's a lack of feeling confident in that position or sharing with others. And so what I tell other leaders and entrepreneurs is, and it takes work, but it's a good fight. You want to try to figure out how you can create psychological safety in your company and with your teammates and staff. And essentially, I believe if you can establish psychological safety where people know they're supported, know that they can be heard and want to be heard, and that they can make mistakes and they won't be punished for them. In fact, that if you make a mistake, we learn from it. You teach people how to reframe challenges. You support them and you do your best to stick by them. But when you can try to figure out your own specific recipe around some of the things I've said in terms of instilling psychological safety, to me, that is the foundation of creativity. And now that you have creativity, of course, what comes from creative thought is innovation. And when you have more innovation, you have the opportunities for productivity and growth. And so, what I'd recommend to everyone is don't run away from the silos, run to them. And look at them and detach from an emotional response and view it as data. What is this telling you about your business? What is this telling you about this particular division or initiative? And communicate. I think we forget that, we're communication, like we're built to communicate. And although we have great technology and, we've made a living bringing some of these technologies to the market, we really do want that human connection, that, one-on-one and, one-on team, and to feel heard, seen, and understood. And so as a leader, if you can instill that into your management, if you can adopt that for yourself, if you can just really rest upon that, if you care enough, they'll feel your care. Creating psychological safety is the foundation for eliminating silos.
Wow, I like that. Because you said the motivation you said comes behind it, right? They're afraid of something.
That's right.
Which is why they're kind of like cooling off. Because I never understood, like when I used to be a personal trainer. I think some of the listeners remember the story that I was taught as a personal trainer to say, okay, the gym is yours, though your clients, right? We'll find you some clients here and there. And then I remember hearing some success stories of like, people that are always busy. Like the trainers are always busy training these clients. You're thinking, oh wow, that's pretty cool. And I would always try to help out anybody I can. And then people came to me, they said, okay, why are you trying to help out your quote unquote rival trainers in the gym? I said, well, think about it this way. I can only physically train so many people in a day. How many members do we have? Hundreds? Thousands?
Right.
Now expand that out to those who do, private training, like in their own facility, or they go to the clients' homes. I'm like, you got a market of like hundreds of thousands of people. Are you really going to be able to train every single one of them? So to me, it's about sharing the love, right? Because I can only physically do so much. Now, this is all before, the P90Xs and the Insanities, and then of course the online training model of Beachbody, which is what we see now. But at that time, I was like, I'm not greedy. I don't need everything. I don't need a lot. I just need enough. That's the way I always kind of looked at it. I don't need to be.
I love the approach.
Yeah, you don't need that much, right? Because as long as you're supporting your family, food's on the table, the roof over your head, you're pretty successful, I think, for most people versus the vast majority of the world.
And to your point, I'm seeing more and more people with the adoption of technology. And again, don't get me wrong. I mean, within the technology space. It enhances our lives. But there is more and more I'm seeing where people are thirsty and gravitating and wanting more of just that authentic, real connection.
Absolutely.
And whether you're looking to build clients, relationships, strategic with your vendors, suppliers, or just your team, I would suggest and encourage not to forget about the power of that, authentic connection that you can have and the kind of transformation that can occur not only for you, but your teammates within that.
No, absolutely. So, all right, now we're just about to wrap it up. We're going to do the rapid fire round now.
Now it's time for the rapid fire round.
These are all the serious techie stuff and all the serious business talk.
Right.
Now we're going to try to relax and have fun with this one.
Okay.
All right. So first question.
Here we go.
What is your work-life balancing act like?
Finding out what I love to do and who to do it with, and try to stick to that as much as I can.
Absolutely. That's not a bad start. I always joked around, like, if it ain't on the Google Calendar, it ain't happening. Right. So it's like every appointment I have to put on there. Otherwise, I'm totally going to forget and all that sort of stuff. So interesting here. Okay. Next question. What would the 15-year-old self be thinking you'd be doing right now?
Oh, wow. Okay. Definitely sports agent.
Sports agent.
Yeah.
You grew up in the Jerry Maguire days.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But I just love sports, all sports. And I don't know. I dreamt about being a sports agent. Yeah.
All right.
Maybe it was Jerry Maguire. Who knows?
Well, what specific sport? Like you said, you watch a lot of sports. What's your absolute favorite sport that you would love to be an agent for?
Hockey and baseball, too.
Oof. Yeah. Very, very nice. And for those two people, I also wanted to be an agent back in the day as well, because it looked like a cool job.
Wow.
It looked like a cool job at the time, right? But then it's all about getting in and who do you know and getting your foot in the door, which is really hard nowadays. But okay. All right. Next question here. Would you rather wear a monitor that beeps when you're lying or beeps when you're attracted to someone?
Beeps when I'm lying.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want Mrs. K to be looking at me every time I'm walking by.
Let's say, question. That's so
good. It's
okay.
Yeah, this is the more relaxed stuff. Okay, next question here, John.
That's awesome.
Worst movie sequel ever made.
Oh, wow. I personally didn't like any sequel past 1 and 2 of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Indiana Jones.
Nice. Sorry, Indiana Jones. Yeah. Here I am saying one of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything past 1 and 2, it's not for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the not this one that was released this year or last year but the other one before that had some aliens, which is really weird. Which I don't know why they did that, but no, I can totally relate. I think when I was younger, back in '95 or '96, I remember I used to like playing Mortal Kombat, the video game. And when I first heard that it was coming into theaters and they actually had a movie for it, I was so excited and I watched it. Wow. And it was the first movie, John, that I ever went to the theaters twice to watch it. I saw it the first time, loved it, had to go back. And then they came out with Mortal Kombat 2.
Right.
Where half the cast has left. And was one of the worst movies I think I've ever seen in my entire life. That I am so glad I didn't actually watch it in theaters, because I think I saw it because once I found out like some of the key characters of the first movie, either they didn't want to, because I guess the backstory for those who know about it, when Mortal Kombat came out in '95, I think, to the theaters, it grossed really well. But unfortunately, they tried to jump the gun and say, "Oh, let's sign them all up for long-term deals to do a second one." Not a lot of the cast wanted to do that. I think for maybe out of, let's say, the 4 or 5 main cast members of the show, of the movie, maybe like one decided to stick around. Wow. So they had to recast 4 other characters that were very much loved in the first one, and it just went down after that. So,
well, you just reminded me of another one that while you're talking.
Go ahead.
A movie that I absolutely loved and I saw too. I was like, was Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber. I didn't even see the second one. I remember the first one.
Oh, don't bother.
So don't watch the second one.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, just watch the first one again if you're gonna do that.
I'll tell you this one movie that I saw with my wife. Well, back then it was just my girlfriend. I think it was a Will Ferrell movie. I think it was something like Journey to the Center of the Earth or something like that. And this is
Okay.
back in the day where Blockbuster was still around, where you can go and rent
Right.
Blu-rays, DVDs. I
Those
remember
were
we
fun
bought.
days.
Yeah, I love Blockbuster nights. So just to let you know, folks, I rented that movie. She was unsure about the movie because she knows I like silly humor sometimes. We watched the movie. She didn't speak to me for 2 days. She was that upset that she
Oh
wasted her
no.
life watching that one. But anyways, all right. Next question. I always ask last two questions. I always ask this one. If you can make your own sandwich, what would be on it and what would you call it?
If I could make my own sandwich,
Yeah.
well, it would be called. I don't know if this is a perfect answer, but it's the entrepreneurial brain. I would call it the sandwich factory.
Okay.
So maybe it's a business called the Sandwich Factory.
All right.
And what would be on it? You know what, Ken? I think I'm more like just a straight up old like cold cuts kind of thing. But I need my good cheddar, mustard, tomatoes, and then I would load it with like 5 different kinds of Italian salami.
The Sandwich Factory. And I'm
Yeah.
going to say I'm in, just like the shirt you're wearing right now. I'm
Okay,
in.
awesome,
Right? So,
awesome.
all right, last question we have here. What is
Sure.
your theme song and why? So that song hits, you're walking down the street, that song hits, everyone knows that John's coming.
Thunderstruck, AC/DC. I mean,
Woo!
come on, right? Like, let's
Classic.
go. Yeah, let's
I love
go.
it.
It's
I
time
love
to, you hear that? It's time to go. There's no more waiting. It's time
It's
to go.
go time.
Yeah,
Nice. All
that's
right.
right.
So last question, this is just in general. What advice would you give any aspiring or new entrepreneur that wants to get into some venture? What would your best advice be?
Go into your heart. Make sure you believe that that's what you want to do. And if you get a yes, do it. Take the time to plan, but at some point in time, take the business plan and throw it against the wall and see what sticks. You got to execute. You got to go for it. You plan, but go for it. And don't let anyone talk you out of your dream. I mean, if you're convinced and you believe that you're supposed to do it, by all means, do it, because the world needs to see what you're going to create.
Oh, awesome advice. Except for the pronto reminder services business that I thought about doing many years ago. Then maybe that probably wouldn't have stuck. But
Right.
aside from that, awesome, John. So where can people find you and reach out to you?
Yeah. So for all you entrepreneurs out there, and you want to give Nucleus a try, we encourage you to. We just crossed over a beta, so over 2,500 workspaces being used and growing every day. So nucleus.com. And if you want to find out more about Fibernetics that I mentioned and our history, go to fibernetics.ca, fibernetics.ca. Big culture page on there that you can explore our company and services. And and if you want to connect with me, I'm more than happy to be connected with you via LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, John, for being on the show. It was a good one.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it.
Hey you, do you need a voiceover? Well, look no farther. Northway Capital Group has your answer. Commercials and explainer videos, AVR and voicemail, health and wellness, corporate training and e-learning, announcements, documentaries, and biography. Contact us on social media or email us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.